As the cold fingers of dawn clawed at the horizon, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, the kind that wraps around you like a shroud, leaving you acutely aware of every rustle in the underbrush. I had been a forest ranger in the sprawling landscapes of Prescott National Forest for nearly a decade, dedicating my life to safeguarding this ancient realm. Yet, on this particular midnight patrol, an instinct deep within me screamed that the woods were alive with secrets far older and darker than I had ever imagined. I had always known these woods were steeped in legends, the whispered tales of skinwalkers that haunted the dreams of the local Yavapai people. These shapeshifters, with their ability to morph into animals or human forms, were said to carry curses that could unravel the very fabric of reality. For years, I dismissed such stories as mere folklore, cautionary tales meant to keep children from wandering too far. But with the recent spate of disappearances and the inexplicable phenomena that had begun to plague our quiet community, those tales took on a chilling new significance. As I trudged deeper into the heart of the forest, the familiar paths began to feel foreign. The towering pines and gnarled oaks loomed like sentinels, their shadows stretching and twisting in the moonlight. I could hear the distant call of an owl, its lonely cry echoing through the trees, but then came a sound that clawed at my very soul, a howl that seemed to warp and twist in the air, merging with the rustling leaves in a way that defied logic. My breath hitched in my throat as I stepped toward a clearing, drawn by a force I couldn't comprehend. What I saw next would haunt my dreams forever. There, amidst the silvered moonlight, a figure writhed and contorted, its form shifting between man and beast in a dance that defied all reason. My heart raced as I grappled with the reality of what I was witnessing. This was no mere trick of the light, no figment of my imagination. This was something tangible, something that challenged everything I had ever believed. In that moment, I felt the weight of my past pressing down on me. Years ago, I had lost someone dear to me in these very woods, my younger brother, who had vanished without a trace during a camping trip. The guilt of not being able to protect him had become a specter that haunted my every step in these woods. But now, as I stood frozen in terror, I realized that this figure, the skinwalker, might hold the key to unraveling the mystery that had long eluded me. The air crackled with tension as I took a step back, my instincts screaming to flee. But something deeper compelled me to stay, to confront this horror head-on. I had dedicated my life to these woods, to understanding their secrets, and now I was faced with the ultimate test. Was I ready to confront the darkness that lurked in the heart of the forest? But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. As the last vestiges of daylight surrendered to the encroaching night, I found myself standing at the edge of that clearing, my heart thundering in my chest. The skinwalker had vanished, leaving behind only a chilling echo of its howl that reverberated through the trees. I stumbled back, my mind racing, desperate to process what I had witnessed. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a witness to something far beyond my understanding. A sudden rustle behind me snapped me from my thoughts. I turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows, a silhouette against the dimming light. It was Sarah, a fellow ranger, and one of the few people I trusted in this wild expanse. Her face was pale, eyes wide, reflecting the same fear I felt coiling in my gut. "Did you see it too?" she gasped, her breath coming in quick bursts. I nodded, still breathless. It was real, Sarah. It was shifting between forms right in front of me. She shivered, crossing her arms as if to ward off an invisible chill. I've heard the stories, but I never believed them until now. The disappearances? They can't be a coincidence. I couldn't help but think of my brother, of the weight of my guilt that had only grown heavier with each passing year. What if it's connected? What if whatever took him is still here, lurking in the dark? That's why we need to find out more, Sarah said, determination creeping into her voice. We can't let fear control us. We need to investigate, There are others who've experienced strange things lately, locals who've seen shadows, moving where they shouldn't, and heard voices calling their names in the dead of night. As if summoned by her words, the night seemed to thrum with energy, the whispers of the forest growing louder. I felt the weight of her gaze, the urgency in her tone. We had to delve deeper, but the thought of facing whatever darkness awaited us petrified me. "Let's gather the others," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If we're going to confront this, we need backup." We headed back to the ranger station, the oppressive darkness closing in around us. As we walked, I could sense the forest shifting, its secrets lurking just out of sight. I thought of my brother again, of the last time I'd seen him, the carefree laughter, the promise of adventure. Guilt gnawed at me, twisting into something more profound, a fear that I might never find closure. When we arrived, the station was dimly lit, the glow from the few flickering bulbs casting long shadows that danced on the walls. We gathered the other rangers: Mark, a grizzled veteran with a no-nonsense attitude; Jenna, new to the team but fiercely passionate; and Tom, who had always seemed to have a nose for trouble. "Sarah and I saw something in the woods," I began, the words spilling out before I could second-guess myself. "A creature, something like the skinwalker from the legends. We need to talk to everyone about what's been happening." Mark's brow furrowed as he leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "You can't be serious. Those are just stories." "We've all heard them. But the disappearances," Jenna interjected, her voice steady but urgent, "they can't be ignored. We have to consider the possibility that something supernatural is at play." I could see the skepticism in Mark's eyes, but Tom nodded, his expression shifting from disbelief to curiosity. "What if there's something to it? I felt strange things in the woods lately, things I can't explain." The emotional conflict in the room was palpable as I felt the weight of their doubts pressing down on me. I had never wanted to be the one to lead us into this darkness, yet here I was, standing at the precipice of something far beyond my comprehension. I could feel the fear mingling with a sense of purpose, an urgency to uncover the truth. "All right," Mark finally said, the resignation in his tone clear. "Let's do this. But we need a plan. We can't go running into the woods without knowing what we're facing." With that, a pact was formed, a fragile alliance against the encroaching darkness. I could sense the uncertainty swirling among us, but I also felt a flicker of hope. We were no longer alone in this fight. As the night deepened, I steeled myself for what lay ahead, knowing that the hunt for answers would lead us deeper into the heart of the forest, and perhaps into the very heart of our fears. But the forest was alive, and as we prepared to venture back into its depths, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that the very shadows held secrets we were not ready to face. As the night deepened around us, the air grew thick with tension. Just as we were about to finalize our plan, a loud crash echoed from the darkness beyond the station, followed by a series of frantic barks. My heart raced as I instinctively reached for the flashlight at my hip, illuminating the shadows that seemed to twist and contort with every beam. "Did you hear that?" Jenna whispered, her eyes wide with fear. "It sounded like it came from the direction of the creek," Sarah said, her voice trembling slightly. Before I could respond, Mark was already striding toward the door. "Stay close. We'll check it." Out together. We stepped outside, the cold air biting at my skin. The woods loomed ominously, their silhouettes shifting in the flickering light of my flashlight. I could hear the frantic barking of a dog, our search and rescue dog, Max. He was trained for this, but the urgency in his barks sent chills down my spine. As we approached the creek, the sound of splashing water mingled with Max's frantic barks. I pushed through the underbrush, my heart racing, and froze as I stepped into the clearing. There, in the moonlight, I could see Max, his fur bristled, teeth bared, fixated on something just beyond my line of sight. "Max," I called out, but my voice felt swallowed by the night. Then I saw it, a figure, silhouetted against the trees. My breath caught in my throat as recognition washed over me. It was my brother, standing there as if he just walked out of the passed. He looked older, more worn, but there was no mistaking that familiar shape. "Jake?" I whispered, disbelief flooding my senses, but as I stepped closer, the figure morphed, twisting into something unrecognizable, the features blurring like a mirage. My heart sank. I staggered back, my mind racing. "No, it can't be!" "Is that—" Jenna's voice trailed off, her eyes wide with shock. Mark stepped forward, brow furrowed. "What's going on?" My mind was spiraling. I had spent years searching for answers, replaying that day over and over. The last time I saw him was on this very trail, the day he disappeared. It looked like him. "It was him!" I shouted, the panic rising in my throat. "Maybe it's trying to lure you," Sarah suggested, her voice barely above a whisper. As I tried to make sense of it all, a memory surfaced, a moment I had long buried. I recalled a night when Jake had spoken of the legends, how he believed some part of the forest was alive, a spirit that watched and echoed the fears of those who wandered too far. Suddenly, I felt the weight of their eyes on me, and I realized I wasn't just fighting for my brother anymore. I was fighting against something that had been feeding on my own guilt and fear. "It's not just the forest anymore," I murmured, feeling a cold sweat break out on my forehead. "It's us, too." I looked at my companions, their expressions a mix of concern and fear. I sensed a flicker of doubt creeping into their minds, the possibility that this wasn't just a supernatural threat, but something far more insidious, our own unresolved traumas coming to life. Tom's voice broke through the silence, shaky but firm. "What if it's been manipulating our memories? What if we're not just hunting for a creature, but for the truth of our own pasts?" The implications hung heavily in the air. I felt the walls closing in, the shadows growing thicker around us. Maybe the skinwalker wasn't the only thing we had to fear. With that realization, I steeled myself. We were no longer just rangers. We were a group of haunted souls, each carrying secrets that could unravel us all. As we prepared to dive deeper into the forest, I could sense the tangled web of our lives tightening around us, leading us toward a truth I feared might destroy us. And just as I turned to face the woods again, a low growl emanated from the darkness, a promise of what awaited us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the real hunt had only just begun. The growl reverberated through the clearing, a primal sound that sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I tightened my grip on the flashlight, the beam flickering as I turned to face the direction of the noise. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a caged animal desperate to escape. "Stay together," I shouted, my voice trembling, as I tried to rally us. The shadows around us seemed to pulse with life, each rustle of leaves and crack of twigs amplifying the growing dread that wrapped around us like a vice. Mark stepped forward, trying to take charge. "We need to move back toward the station. This isn't safe." But I could see the uncertainty in his eyes, the way he glanced at the trees as if they might spring to life at any moment. "No," I snapped, my fear morphing into determination. "We can't leave now, not when we're so close to the truth. Jake, if that's really him, but what if it's not?" Jenna interjected, her voice rising in pitch. "What if it's a trick? What if it's feeding on your memories, your pain?" Her eyes darted nervously between me and the dark. I felt a wave of anger wash over me, but it was tinged with something else, a flicker of doubt that I couldn't shake. "You think I want to believe this?" I shot back, my voice cracking. "You think I want to confront the possibility that I failed him, that I couldn't save him?" The growl came again, closer this time, and I felt the ground beneath me tremble as something large crashed through the underbrush. I raised the flashlight high, the beam illuminating a massive shadow moving toward us, its eyes glowing like embers in the dark. "Run," Mark shouted, but I couldn't move. My feet felt rooted to the spot, my mind racing with the realization that I had to face this, whatever it was. "Wait, we can't just run," I yelled, my voice echoing in the eerie silence. "We need to confront it. It's tied to us." "Confront what?" "Your brother's ghost?" Sarah cried out, fear etched into her features. "No," I shouted back, anger boiling over. "Confront the truth, the guilt, the fear, This thing is feeding on our pain, and if we don't face it together, we'll never be free. Suddenly, a flash of movement caught my eye. A figure darting between the trees, a glimpse of familiar features. "Jake!" I yelled, taking a step forward, my heart aching with hope. But as I moved, the shadow lunged forward, and in that moment, I felt the ground shift beneath me, reality bending like a warped reflection. The entity was upon us, a manifestation of every fear I had ever harbored, every regret I couldn't let go. I steeled myself, ready to face it. "You want me?" I shouted into the void, feeling my voice grow stronger. Then, "Let's end this!" But as I stood firm, I noticed the others hesitating, their expressions a mix of fear and uncertainty. It was then I realized I wasn't just battling the entity. I was also battling their doubts, their reluctance to confront their own demons. "Together," I urged, my heart pounding as I reached for each of them, hoping to pull them into this fight. "We have to do this together." In that moment, the air shifted, the tension reaching its peak, and I understood that the outcome of this confrontation depended not just on my courage, but on the strength of our bonds. The darkness loomed closer, and I braced myself for whatever came next, knowing that the truth we sought lay just beyond the veil. As I stood there, heart racing and hands trembling, I felt the weight of my friend's hesitation pressing down on us like a thick fog. The shadow loomed closer, its growl reverberating through the clearing, a sound that felt like it was clawing at the edges of my sanity. "Together!" I shouted again, my voice breaking through the haze of fear that had enveloped us. Mark took a deep breath, his expression shifting from uncertainty to determination as he stepped forward, his hand clasping mine. "I'm with you," he said, his voice steadier than I felt. Jenna and Sarah exchanged glances, and with a nod they joined us, forming a circle of resolve against the darkness. As we stood united, I felt a surge of energy course through us, our collective fear transforming into something more powerful. The shadow didn't hesitate, lunging at us with a force that knocked the breath from my lungs. I closed my eyes, focusing on the memories of Jake, his laughter, his warmth, pushing away the guilt that had haunted me for so long. "You're not real," I screamed, my voice echoing through the trees. The entity hesitated, a flicker of uncertainty rippling through its form. It was as if my words had struck a chord deep within the darkness. Around me, I could feel my friends drawing on their own memories, their own fears, and as we stood together, a blinding light erupted from our center, pushing against the shadow with a fierce intensity. In a flash, the creature roared, a deafening sound that shook the very ground beneath us. It writhed and twisted, its form flickering like a flame caught in the wind. I felt the power of our shared memories, our grief, and our love pushing it back, forcing it to unravel. But just as quickly as it had come, the light flickered and dimmed, leaving us gasping for breath as silence fell over the clearing. I opened my eyes, trembling as I surveyed the aftermath. The shadow was gone, but the scars remained, both physical and emotional. Jenna knelt, clutching her stomach, pale and shaken, while Mark leaned against a tree, breathless. Sarah looked around wide-eyed, as if the very fabric of reality had shifted. Did we win?" she whispered, the question hanging in the air. I nodded slowly, but the unease gnawed at me. The entity may have been vanished, but something still lingered in the air, a sense of unfinished business. I could feel it deep within my bones, the knowledge that this wasn't truly over. "I think we just scratched the surface," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Mark rubbed the back of his neck, a frown creasing his brow. "What do you mean?" "There are more questions than answers," I replied, glancing at the trees that surrounded us, their branches twisting like gnarled hands. "Jake's not the only one tied to this place. We need to understand what we face tonight." As we picked ourselves up, I noticed something glimmering on the ground, an old locket, tarnished but intact. I bent down to pick it up, recognizing it as belonging to a girl from our past, someone who had vanished long ago. "This is just a piece of the puzzle, isn't it?" I murmured, holding it up for them to see. Jenna's eyes widened. What if this is connected to what we just faced? What if there are more lost souls out there? A chill ran down my spine, the implication settling heavy in the air. I glanced back toward the depths of the woods, feeling the pull of the mystery that still lay ahead. We had survived tonight, but the truth was far from complete. We had opened a door, and now it was time to step through it. Let's find out, I said, determination igniting within me once more. Together. As we ventured deeper into the woods, the locket clutched tightly in my hand. The air thickened with an unshakable dread. The memories of Jake and the shadowy entity intertwined, in my mind, weaving a tapestry of fear that grew heavier with each step. The darkness felt alive, pulsating with a malevolence that beckoned us closer to the heart of our nightmares. Suddenly, a low whisper echoed through the trees, twisting my thoughts until they spiraled into chaos. "They're coming for you," it hissed, a voice distorted by grief and anger. I stumbled, a vision of all I had lost flooding my mind. Friends I couldn't save, shadows that clung to my every thought. My heart pounded as I realized the truth. The shadows weren't just remnants of the past, they were the very essence of my fears, manifesting into something tangible and real. "Guys, we need to turn back," I shouted, panic spilling from my lips. But it was too late. The ground beneath us trembled, and from the darkness emerged figures, lost souls, their faces twisted in anguish, their eyes void of hope. They reached for us, their fingers clawing through the air, and I could feel my resolve crumbling. "No, this can't be," I gasped, backing away. But the shadows pressed in, swallowing the light, dragging us into the depths of despair. My worst fears had come to life. My friends were trapped just as I had been, and I was powerless to save them. As their cries faded into the night, I realized I was now a part of the very nightmare I had sought to conquer. I was forever bound to this cursed place, a guardian of lost souls, my own spirit eroding within the darkness. The forest hushed, a chilling silence wrapping around me. I was left alone, a prisoner of my own making, a nightmare that had become all too real. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this mystery-filled adventure. Leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story. What if the forest you've dedicated your life to protecting harbors a darkness that can twist the very essence of humanity? On a moonless night, the air hangs heavy with foreboding, and an unsettling silence wraps around the towering pines of the Coconino National Forest. I stand vigilant, my instincts sharpened by years of patrolling these woods as a forest ranger. But nothing could prepare me for the nightmare that would unfold before my eyes. A chilling transformation that would shatter everything I believed about the natural world and the stories of old. As the last light of day surrendered to the encroaching shadows, I felt an inexplicable pull, as if the trees themselves whispered secrets meant only for me. I had grown up in Flagstaff, a town steeped in Native American lore, where tales of skinwalkers, shape-shifting beings capable of possessing the innocent, were passed down like heirlooms. I had always regarded these stories with a blend of skepticism and reverence, convinced they were mere folklore meant to caution the curious. Yet, as I ventured deeper into the forest that night, the air thickened with dread, and a primal fear settled in my gut. Then it happened. A guttural scream erupted from the thicket, tearing through the silence like a jagged knife. I rushed toward it, the sound heart-pounding, only to witness a scene that would haunt my dreams. A man, seemingly ordinary, contorted grotesquely, as if his bones were made of wax, melting under an unseen force. His cries morphed into a cacophony of anguish and despair, blending with the mournful howls of the wind. I could hardly breathe as I watched him transform, his limbs elongating, features twisting into the unmistakable visage of a skinwalker, a creature born of ancient malevolence. I stumbled back, grappling with the horror before me. This was not just a story. It was a nightmare manifesting in flesh and bone. I had come to protect these woods, yet now it felt as though I had unwittingly stepped into a realm where the natural order had been upended. As the grotesque figure vanished into the shadows, I was left grappling with the enormity of what I had witnessed. Reports of strange disappearances and erratic behavior among the locals had surged in recent weeks, but I had dismissed them as mere coincidence. Now, the malevolence I had once viewed as myth was clawing its way into reality. The forest, once a sanctuary, now loomed over me like a malevolent entity. Each rustle among the leaves seemed to whisper warnings, and every shadow felt alive, watching, waiting. I had always respected the land, but I could feel the darkness creeping in, threatening to consume everything I held dear. Memories of my childhood flooded back, my grandmother's voice warning me about the skinwalkers, her eyes wide with fear as she recounted tales of those who had ventured too far and never returned. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. I stood frozen for what felt like an eternity, my mind racing to comprehend the horror I had just witnessed. The forest around me, once vibrant and alive with the sounds of nature, now felt suffocatingly quiet, as if even the creatures of the night had withdrawn in fear. My heart pounded in my chest, and the weight of the darkness pressed down on my shoulders, threatening to crush my resolve. I turned to run, desperate to escape the malevolence that had revealed itself, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, tracked by something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. It was then that I heard voices, low and urgent, echoing through the trees. I hesitated, torn between the instinct to flee and the need for answers. I followed the sound, my heart racing, until I stumbled upon a small gathering of people huddled around a flickering campfire. Their faces were illuminated by the flames, revealing expressions of worry and fear that mirrored my own. "Did you see it?" A woman with long, dark hair asked, her voice trembling. She was clutching a flashlight, as if it were a lifeline. "It's not just rumors anymore. People are disappearing and we're not safe here." I stepped closer, recognizing her as Maya, a local herbalist known for her deep connection to the land and its ancient spirits. "You're talking about skinwalkers," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I thought those were just stories." "They're real," Maya insisted, her eyes blazing with conviction. "I've felt their presence, the way the air shifts. When they come near, they're hunting, and they're getting stronger." Another figure in the group, a wiry man named Tom, shook his head. "We need to get out of here. We can't let fear control us, but we can't ignore what's happening either. I've seen things, shadows moving when there's no wind, voices calling out in the night. It's unnatural." I looked around at the group, Maya, Tom, and a few others I recognized from the town. They were united by a shared fear, yet I could sense a deeper connection among them, a bond forged by their belief in the old ways and the stories that had been passed down through generations. It was a community that had long been wary of the encroaching world beyond the forest, and now that world had come crashing in. "I'm a forest ranger," I said, finding my voice amidst the rising tension. "I've dedicated my life to protecting these woods, but I don't know how to fight something like this. I'm not equipped for this kind of battle." Maya stepped forward, her expression softening. "You have more power than you realize. You understand the land. You can help us figure out what's happening. We need to confront this darkness together." As her words sunk in, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me, but it was quickly overshadowed by the gnawing fear of the unknown. What if I couldn't protect them? What if this darkness was too powerful? I had spent years studying the cycles of nature, the balance of life and death, but this felt like a disruption that went beyond anything I could comprehend. "Let's head deeper into the forest," Tom suggested, his voice steady, despite the fear glistening in his eyes. "We need to find the source of this evil before it consumes us all." I took a deep breath, my mind racing as I considered the implications. Venturing into the heart of the forest meant risking everything I had fought to protect. But it also meant facing the truth lurking in the shadows, a truth that could either save us or lead to our destruction. "All right," I said, steeling myself for what lay ahead. "We'll do it together." As we prepared to set out into the darkness, I felt the weight of my grandmother's warnings echoing in my mind. The forest was alive, and I could feel its heartbeat quickening with every step we took. With each rustle of the leaves, the atmosphere thickened, the tension palpable. I glanced back at the flickering firelight behind us, a symbol of hope slowly fading into the distance. The path before us was fraught with danger, and I could only hope that we would emerge from the night unscathed. Little did I know, the true test was just beginning. As we ventured deeper into the forest, shadows danced in the corners of my vision, twisting my perception of reality. Every snap of a twig felt amplified. Each rustle in the underbrush sent jolts of adrenaline coursing through my veins. I tried to focus on the path ahead, but my mind spiraled back to the stories my grandmother used to tell, the old tales that danced on the edge of memory, warning of spirits that roamed where the light dared not tread. Maya led the way, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness like a knife. "Stay close," she urged, her voice steady but laced with tension. Tom walked alongside me, his expression grave. "You okay?" he asked, glancing my way. "I think so," I replied, though doubt gnawed at me. The further we went, the more I questioned not just my surroundings, but my own sanity. Had I really seen what I thought I had back at the clearing? The blood, the twisted form, the eyes that seemed to pierce through me. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog of fear clouding my thoughts. That's when I caught a glimpse of something in the trees, an unnatural movement, almost human yet grotesquely distorted. My heart raced, and I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. "Did you see that?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What?" Tom asked, scanning the trees. "That, over there." I pointed, but the moment I did, it vanished into the darkness. The uncertainty gnawed at me, and I wondered if I was losing my grip on reality. Maya's voice broke through my spiraling thoughts. "There's something else," she said, urgency in her tone. "We're not just dealing with skinwalkers. This darkness is feeding on something deep in the forest." She paused, glancing around as if the trees themselves were listening. "And it knows we're here." As we pressed on, I stumbled upon a clearing, its air thick with an oppressive energy. At the center lay an old stone altar, its surface covered in strange symbols that pulsed with an eerie glow. My heart dropped as memories flashed before me. My childhood, my grandmother's whispers, her warnings about the old ways and the darkness that could be summoned if the balance was disturbed. I've seen this before," I stammered, taking a step closer. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about a place like this, where the veil between worlds is thin. She warned me never to venture here." Maya's gaze sharpened. "What do you mean? Did she say anything specific?" "She mentioned a ritual, a way to bind the darkness if it ever threatened to rise," I said, my voice trembling with the weight of revelation. "But it requires something precious to the one performing it. A sacrifice." At that moment, Tom stepped back, his face pale. "What are you saying? That we need to offer something to stop this?" Before I could respond, a chilling wind swept through the clearing, extinguishing Maya's flashlight and plunging us into darkness. Panic surged within me, and as I fumbled for my own light, I felt a presence behind me, something cold and malevolent. "Run!" I shouted, but my voice felt swallowed by the night. The reality of our situation crashed over me like a wave. This wasn't just a battle against a myth. It was a reckoning tied to my past, to my family, and to the secrets buried deep within. These woods. I could feel the weight of my grandmother's legacy pressing down on me, intertwining with the fate of everyone around me. "Stay together." Maya yelled, but the forest seemed to shift around us, branches twisting and contorting as if alive. In the depths of my mind, a terrifying thought emerged. What if I was the very thing that darkness sought? What if the shadows were drawn to my family's history, and I was doomed to repeat a cycle I had never fully understood? The air thickened, and as I turned to face my companions, I saw fear mirrored in their eyes. We were trapped in a web of fate, each of us tethered to secrets that threatened to unravel everything we thought we knew. The forest held its breath, and I knew that whatever lay ahead would change us all forever. The darkness enveloped us, a suffocating blanket that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears, a frantic rhythm that matched the chaos around me. "We have to move," I shouted, the urgency in my voice drowning out the whispers of the trees. I felt the weight of my grandmother's warnings pressing on my chest, a reminder that I was not just a bystander in this nightmare, I was part of it. As we stumbled through the underbrush, I could sense the shadows closing in, their cold fingers brushing against my skin. I glanced back at Maya and Tom, their faces ghostly pale in the dim light of my flashlight. Tom's breathing was ragged, and I could see his hands trembling. "What do we do?" he gasped, fear etched into his features. Didn't have an answer. The altar loomed in my mind, the symbols glowing brighter with every passing moment. It was as if the forest itself was urging me to remember, to reclaim the knowledge buried in my past. "We need to perform the ritual," I said, the words tumbling out before I could fully grasp their meaning. "It's the only way to bind whatever is out there." Maya's eyes widened. "You know the ritual?" She stepped closer, her flashlight beam flickering across the altar's surface. "What do we need?" "My grandmother said it requires something precious," I admitted, my heart sinking. "Something that binds you to the darkness." I glanced at Tom, a sudden dread coiling in my stomach. It could be me. Tom shook his head, his expression a mixture of disbelief and determination. "No, we can find another way." But deep down, I knew there was no escape from this. The darkness was hungry, and it had come for me. Just then, a rustle erupted from the trees, and I turned to see a figure emerge from the shadows cloaked in a tattered robe. It was a woman, her face obscured, but I could feel her gaze drilling into me. "You've come to awaken the old ones," she rasped, her voice like dry leaves in the wind. "You must choose, your life or theirs." "What do you mean?" I stammered, the weight of her words crashing over me. "Who are you?" "I am the keeper of the balance," she said, stepping closer. "Your grandmother was wise to stay away, but you are drawn here by blood and fate." Maya took a step forward, challenging the figure. "What do you want from us?" The woman's laughter echoed through the clearing, chilling my bones. "What I want is irrelevant. The forest hungers, and it will claim its due. Your choice will determine the fate of all." Panic surged within me, and I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. The shadows seemed to writhe, eager for my decision. I was at a crossroads, teetering on the edge of a chasm that threatened to swallow everything. I knew. The weight of my family's legacy pressed down on me, and in that moment I understood. The true sacrifice wasn't just about blood, it was about confronting the darkness within myself. "Enough," I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos. "I won't let it take us. I'll face it, but I need you both to stand with me." I reached for Maya and Tom, desperation clawing at my throat. "Together, we can bind it. Together we can end this." The forest held its breath as I spoke. Those words, the air thick with tension. My heart raced, and I could feel the power of the altar calling to me, urging me to make the ultimate choice. The shadows shifted, waiting for my answer, and I realized that the true battle wasn't just against the darkness outside. It was against the fear that threatened to consume me from within. The shadows held their breath, as if waiting for me, to yield to the darkness swirling around us. I felt the weight of my decision pressing down, the fear of failure gnawing at my insides. But I refused to back down. With Maya and Tom at my side, I stepped toward the altar, the symbols carved into its surface pulsing with an otherworldly energy. Together, I repeated, my voice steady despite the tremors in my hands. As we gathered around the altar, I could feel the energy shifting, an electric charge that coursed through me and into my companions. I closed my eyes, envisioning the ritual my grandmother had described, the words echoing in my mind like a haunting lullaby. By blood and bond, we bind the dark, I began, my voice rising above the cacophony of whispers filling the air. By will and heart, we reclaim our spark. The shadows screamed, their wails mingling with the wind, as Tom and Maya joined in, their voices trembling but resolute. I felt a sudden surge of warmth flood my body, wrapping around me like a protective cloak. It was then that I understood. The darkness was not just a force to be fought, it was a part of me, a reflection of my deepest fears and desires. As we completed the incantation, the shadows recoiled, twisting backward as if struck by an invisible force. A blinding light erupted from the altar, enveloping us in its brilliance. I shielded my eyes, the heat washing over me like a cleansing flame, erasing the chill that had seeped into my bones. For a moment, everything felt impossibly still. But as the light faded, I looked around and realized the forest had shifted. The trees stood taller, their leaves shimmering with a newfound vibrancy. Yet beneath that beauty lay an unsettling residue. The air pulsed with an eerie silence, as if something vital had been sealed away. I turned to Maya and Tom, relieved to see their faces illuminated with a mix of awe and confusion. "Did we do it?" Tom asked, breathless and wide-eyed. "I think we did," I replied, though doubt gnawed at me. The darkness might have been pushed back, but I could still feel its presence lurking, whispering to me from the corners of my mind. "Look," Maya exclaimed, pointing to the altar. The symbols were still glowing, but now they flickered erratically, as though they were struggling against some unseen force. "It's not over, is it?" I shook my head, dread pooling in my stomach. "No, I don't think it is." As we stepped away from the altar, a heavy weight settled upon my heart. I could feel the emotional scars left behind, a mixture of relief and uncertainty. I had faced the darkness, but the confrontation had cost me something I couldn't quite grasp. Tom's eyes met mine, and I saw a flicker of understanding, a shared burden of knowledge that we were forever changed by this night. "We need to find out what else is out there," he said, determination sparking in his gaze. The woman in the tattered robe reappeared, her presence a chilling reminder of the choice I had made. "You have delayed the inevitable," she warned, her voice a haunting echo. "But the darkness will always seek its due. It knows you now, and it will come again." "Then we'll be ready," I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor in my heart. With that, we turned away from the altar, the weight of our choices heavy on our shoulders. But even as we walked back through the forest, I felt the whispers of the trees begin to stir once more, and I knew the story was far from over. The darkness would return, and we would have to face it again, together. As we made our way back through the forest, the whispers grew louder, almost mocking us. I glanced at Maya and Tom, their expressions reflecting my own growing dread. Something had shifted within our little group, something I couldn't quite articulate. It wasn't just the lingering darkness, it was how each of us had changed, like the very fabric of our souls had been woven with the shadows we had faced. Days turned into weeks, and the vibrant leaves began to fall, their colors fading, mirroring a slow decay that settled in my heart. Tom became withdrawn, his laughter replaced by brooding silence. Maya's eyes, once bright with determination, now held a glimmer of fear. I tried to rally us, to remind them of our victory at the altar, but the darkness had left its mark on all of us. One night I found Tom standing alone in the woods, his back to me. I approached cautiously, sensing a shift in the air. "Tom," I called softly, but he didn't respond. As I stepped closer, I noticed the shadows around him pulsing, twisting as if they had a life of their own. My heart raced as I realized the truth. Tom was no longer the friend I had known. The darkness had consumed him, its tendrils wrapping tightly around his heart and mind. "Tom, please," I pleaded, but he turned, his eyes empty and filled with an inky void. "You should have let it in," he whispered, his voice a chilling echo of the man I once knew. "It's beautiful here." A wave of despair washed over me as he took a step toward the darkness, embracing it willingly. I felt a part of myself shatter, the realization that I had failed to save him, that he had become a vessel for the very evil we sought to fight. In that moment, the forest seemed to breathe in a collective sigh, the shadows swirling around us, as they claimed another soul. I fell to my knees, the weight of loss crashing over me. The darkness had triumphed, and I could only watch helplessly as Tom faded into its depths, a harbinger of the corruption that would soon spread. The air crackled with a sinister energy, and I knew this was only the beginning. I had faced the darkness once, but it was clear now that it would return, more powerful than ever. I was left to bear the burden of Tom's fate, and the chilling knowledge that I might be next. As I stumbled back through the woods, the whispers followed, a haunting reminder of the love I had lost and the darkness that thrived within me. I could feel its pull, a seductive lullaby that promised power, but at what cost? If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more tales steeped in mystery and darkness. Share with your friends so they can also embark on this adventure, and leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story. What if the very shadows that dance along the edges of your campfire hold secrets older than time itself? As I lay there, cocooned in the familiar embrace of nature, I never imagined that the silence of Pine Haven could turn into a symphony of whispers. It was a night devoid of stars, the kind that cloaks the world in darkness, leaving only the flickering glow of my campfire to stave off the encroaching void. I was Eldrick, a forest ranger, dedicated to the sacred duty of protecting these wild lands. But even my years of experience could not prepare me for what was about to unfold. The moment I was stirred from sleep, it felt as if the very air shifted, carrying with it an unsettling tension. The whispers, fragmented, unintelligible, slithered through the trees, mingling with the rustle of leaves and the occasional snap of a branch. Heart racing, I blinked into the dim light, straining to discern the source of the disturbance. That's when I saw it. A shadow, elongated and quivering, moving with an unsettling grace just beyond the reach of my firelight. My throat tightened as an ancient instinct gripped me. Something beyond human comprehension lurked just out of sight. Pine Haven had always been my sanctuary, a place where I could escape the burdens of the world. I spent countless weekends exploring its remote corners, enchanted by the tales of mythical creatures whispered by the locals in the nearby town of Ashford. From the mysterious wails of the woods to the legends of the elusive Wendigo, I had come to respect the forest's secrets. Yet, as I stared into the creeping darkness, I felt a primal fear gnawing at the edges of my mind. This was no ordinary night. Gradually, I began to piece together the unsettling clues surrounding me. The ground beneath my feet revealed tracks that defied explanation, large, elongated footprints that bore no resemblance to any animal I knew. My breath caught as a chill raced down my spine. There were markings on the ancient trees, deep gouges that seemed almost purposeful, as if some unseen force had reached out and claimed its territory. The air was thick with the sound of something, was it laughter, lamentation, that echoed. Through the night, just beyond the veil of my understanding, caught in this web of mounting dread, I faced a dilemma that gnawed at my very core. Should I abandon the safety of my camp and flee into the darkness, or was I destined to uncover the truth behind the enigma that haunted these woods? The stories of the Wendigo had warned of the dangers that lay within the heart of Pine Haven, but the truth was always more tantalizing than the comfort of ignorance. I took a deep breath, attempting to quell the storm of fear within me. The flickering flames cast eerie shadows, illuminating the intricate patterns of bark on the trees, creating a landscape that felt alive with unknown potential. My past flickered in my mind, visits with my grandfather, who had shared ghost stories around the fire, instilling in me a sense of wonder and awe for the unknown. Yet, standing here now, I felt that same thrill transformed into something dark and foreboding. But when night fell, something inexplicable happened. The air around me was thickening, swirling with an energy that felt both electric and suffocating. As I sat there, heart pounding, I heard a rustling nearby. My instinct screamed at me to remain still, to watch and wait, but curiosity clawed at my resolve. Just beyond the perimeter of my firelight, a figure emerged. A woman, her silhouette framed by the shadows of the towering trees. "Eldrick," she called softly, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it sliced through the tension like a knife. "You shouldn't be here," I squinted, trying to make out her features. She stepped closer, and the firelight caught her face. Wild, tangled hair, framed sharp cheekbones, and a pair of striking green eyes that glimmered with an intensity that unnerved me. I recognized her. She was Nora, the local herbalist from Ashford, known for her knowledge of the forest and its secrets. "What are you doing here?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "This is my camp." Nora took a step closer, and I could see the fear etched into her expression. "You don't understand. Pine Haven isn't what it seems. The woods are awakening, and something ancient stirs." Her hands trembled slightly, and I could see the faint light of the fire reflecting off a small dagger strapped to her thigh. "You need to leave. Now." I felt a surge of frustration. "I'm not running away from my own home, Nora." "What do you mean, something ancient?" My voice echoed in the stillness, and I regretted the outburst as the whispers around us seemed to rise in volume, almost in response. She stepped back, her eyes darting toward the trees as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows. "You've heard the stories, everyone has. The Wendigo. It's not just a tale to scare children. It's real, and it's hungry." My mind raced. I had brushed off the stories, thinking them mere folklore, but now, with the evidence of my own eyes, the tracks, the marks on the trees, I began to wonder if the legends had a kernel of truth. But why now? Why tonight? I pressed, my heart racing with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "The alignment," she whispered, almost reverently. "The stars, the solstice. It awakens the spirits of the forest. It's a time when the veil is thin, when the Wendigo can walk among us." I felt the weight of her words settle over me like a shroud. My rational mind struggled against the raw terror that gripped my chest. "What do you want me to do?" I asked, my voice shaking. "Just leave? Abandon everything I've worked for?" Nora's expression softened, and for a moment I saw a flicker of understanding in her eyes. "We need to gather others. There are those who know how to confront it, to protect the forest and ourselves. But we have to act quickly. The longer we stay, the stronger it becomes." As she spoke, a low growl rumbled in the distance, a sound that sent chills racing down my spine. It was a sound that didn't belong in Pine Haven. The forest had always been a sanctuary, but now it felt like a trap closing in around us. I could sense the shadows shifting, as if they were alive and watching. "Do you trust me?" Nora asked, her voice steady, but her eyes betraying a flicker of doubt. I hesitated. The weight of the night pressed down on me, and the shadow seemed to pulse with anticipation. I was faced with a choice: to retreat back into the safety of the known, or to step into the unknown with Nora, a woman whose motivations I barely understood. I'll follow you," I finally said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "Good," she replied, determination igniting her eyes. "We need to find the others before it's too late." As we prepared to leave the confines of my camp, the darkness loomed, rich with secrets and dangers. The symphony of whispers grew louder, and I felt the forest itself shifting, as if it were both guiding and warning us. With each step away from the flickering firelight, I could sense the weight of the shadows pressing in, drawing me deeper into a mystery that promised to change everything I thought I knew about Pine Haven. We stepped into the shadows. I could feel the pulse of the forest around us, vibrant and alive, yet tinged with an unsettling energy. Nora moved with purpose, her focus unyielding, but I lagged behind, caught between fear and a nagging sense of familiarity. I had grown up in these woods, had spent countless hours exploring their depths, yet tonight they felt foreign, menacing. "Keep close," she urged, glancing back at me. "If we're lucky, we'll find the others before the Wendigo senses our presence." I nodded, but my mind was racing. The tales of the Wendigo, of spirits and ancient curses, had always been relegated to the realm of folklore. Yet here I was, tangled in the very fabric of one of those stories. It struck me then, a memory flickering to life like the dying embers of my campfire. My brother, Marcus. He'd always been fascinated by the old legends, often regaling me with tales of the dark spirits that roamed Pine Haven. His obsession had turned to madness, or so I thought. The last time I saw him, he was ranting about the Wendigo, claiming its presence was all around us, that it was coming for him. I had dismissed him as delusional, but now the echoes of his words haunted me. Had he seen something? Had he known something I didn't? Nora's voice broke through my thoughts. "Eldrick, focus. We need to reach the clearing by the old well. That's where the others will gather." As we hurried deeper into the woods, the howls of the wind seemed to morph into whispers, murmuring my name, entwining my thoughts with Marcus's last words. "It's alive, Eldrick. The Wendigo is alive," he had said, eyes wild with terror. I swallowed hard, the weight of my brother's fate settling upon my shoulders. "Nora," I said, desperation creeping into my voice, "what if it's already here? What if we're walking right into its trap?" Just as I spoke, the growl returned, louder and closer, reverberating through the trees. Panic surged in my veins. "We need to hurry," I urged, but Nora's expression shifted, her confidence wavering as she turned to face me. "I've seen it," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I thought it was just stories, until I encountered it last month. I barely escaped. The thing that haunts these woods. It's not just a creature, it's a manifestation of fear, anger, and loss. It feeds on our memories." The ground beneath us shuddered, and I stumbled, my heart racing as the realization hit me like a punch to the ear. Good. If the Wendigo was a manifestation of trauma, then what did that mean for me? For Marcus? I had dismissed my brother's struggles, but now I was faced with the possibility that my own buried fears and regrets were fueling this darkness. Nora continued, her gaze intense. "It knows us, Eldrick. It knows our secrets. We have to confront it, or it will consume us." Suddenly, a figure darted through the trees, a flash of movement that sent us both into a defensive stance. "Is that one of the others?" I whispered, fear clawing at my throat. But as the figure stepped into the firelight, I froze. It was Marcus, wild-eyed and disheveled, a haunting echo of the brother I once knew. "Eldrick!" he cried, voice frantic. "You have to run. It's coming for her. You! You can't trust anyone." My heart dropped, confusion and dread intertwining as I stared at the brother I thought I'd lost, realizing that the very heart of this mystery was not just the Wendigo, but the darkness that ran deep within my own family. The forest closed. In around us, shadows twisting into grotesque shapes as I faced the ghost of my brother. "Marcus!" I shouted, my heart pounding in my chest. The sight of him, so raw and frayed, sent a fresh wave of despair crashing over me. "What are you doing here? I thought—" "You thought I was gone?" he interrupted, his eyes wide, glistening with unspoken fear. "I never left, Eldrick. I've been here, in this nightmare, trapped by the Wendigo's grasp. It's feeding off my memories, my pain. It knows you, too." Nora stepped forward, her voice steady, despite the chaos swirling around us. "Marcus, we need to escape. You can't let it draw you in. You have to fight back." but Marcus shook his head violently, his breath quickening. "You don't understand. It's too late for me. It's coming for you both. It's been waiting for you to return." I felt the ground tremble again, a low rumble that resonated through my bones. The air thickened, heavy with the weight of all I had denied. I could feel the Wendigo lurking just beyond the trees, its presence an ominous shadow feeding off our fear. "Marcus," I shouted, desperation clawing at my throat. "What do I have to do? How can I help you?" He hesitated, his gaze darting between Nora and me, as if weighing his next words. "It feeds on our regrets, our fears. Confront it, Eldrick. You have to face the darkness within you. It can't take what you own." But his words felt like a double-edged sword. How could I face something so deeply rooted in my own heart? I thought of the moments I'd buried, my brother's descent into madness, the nights I'd pushed him away, the guilt that had settled like a stone in my chest. Suddenly, a chilling howl echoed through the trees and the very ground beneath. Us seemed to shudder in response. A rush of cold air enveloped me, and I felt the Wendigo's presence creeping closer, its hunger palpable. "Run!" Nora screamed, but I couldn't move. My brother's eyes bore into mine, desperate and pleading. I realized I was at a crossroads, the choice to flee or to confront my deepest fears. As the shadows thickened, I made my decision. "No, I won't let it take us," I shouted, my voice steadying. "I will face my fears. Marcus, stay with me." I stepped forward, heart racing, ready to confront the darkness that had haunted me for years. The trees around us twisted, bending as if the Wendigo itself was drawing near, but this time I wouldn't back down. I took a deep breath, calling forth the memories I had tried so hard to forget, the joy, the pain, the love, and the loss. "Come out!" I yelled into the abyss. "You want me? Then here I am." And with that, I felt the world shift. The shadows surged, and I braced myself for the confrontation that would determine not just my fate, but Marcus's as well. The moment of truth had arrived, and I could either be consumed by the darkness or find a way to reclaim the light. The shadows erupted around me, coiling like serpents, tightening their grip even as I stood my ground. I could feel the Wendigo's breath, cold and rancid, whispering promises of despair. But I had ignited a spark of defiance within me, a blazing fire I thought I'd lost. "Face me!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the darkened woods. Suddenly, the darkness split open like a wound, and a figure emerged, twisted and monstrous, a grotesque caricature of Marcus. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent hunger, and its mouth curled into a grin that chilled my very soul. I felt a rush of sorrow and rage. This was the embodiment of all my regrets, all my fears about losing him. "Eldrick," the Wendigo hissed, its voice a warped reflection of my brother's. "You cannot save him. You are the reason he suffers. You will join him in this torment." I clenched my fists, forcing myself to look beyond the horror. "No, I won't let you take him. I won't let you take me," I shouted, each word a lifeline thrown into the abyss, each syllable a tether to the person I had once been. In that moment of clarity, I felt the memories surge through me, the laughter we'd shared, the late-night talks, the bond that had once felt unbreakable. I focused on the love that had tethered us together, allowing it to wash over my fear. "You're not my brother," I yelled, my voice rising above the howling wind. "You're just a monster feeding off my pain." "Yoskam." Wendigo screeched, a sound so visceral it rattled my bones. As I pushed forward, the shadows recoiled, and I felt a shift in the air. I reached out, grasping at the phantoms of my regrets, and one by one, I confronted them. "I should have been there for you, Marcus. I should have listened. I'm sorry." With each confession, the Wendigo shrieked louder, its form flickering like a dying flame. I could feel Marcus's essence, a faint light behind the monstrous facade, urging me on. "You can do this," he called, his voice breaking through the chaos. In a final surge of will, I shouted, "I forgive you, Marcus. I forgive myself." A blinding light exploded from my heart, illuminating the forest and banishing the darkness. The Wendigo howled in agony, its form disintegrating into swirling shadows, dissipating like smoke in the wind. As the light enveloped me, I felt an overwhelming sense of release, but it came at a cost. When the light faded, I found myself on the forest floor, gasping for air. My body ached, bruises forming where the shadows had clawed at me, and my heart felt heavy with the weight of both victory and grief. I had saved Marcus, but the scars, both physical and emotional, would linger. Nora knelt beside me, her face pale with fear. "Eldrick, are you okay?" She looked at me with a mixture of relief and concern, the woods around us eerily quiet now. "Yeah, I think so," I replied, though I could feel the remnants of the Wendigo's darkness still lingering like shadows in the corners of my mind. I glanced at Marcus, who stood a few paces away, translucent but whole. His expression mirrored my own, a mix of gratitude and unresolved sorrow. "Eldrick, I'm free of it," he said softly, though his form flickered. "But I'm not entirely at peace. There's still something out there, something worse." "What do you mean?" I asked, dread curling in my stomach. He hesitated, looking back into the forest, which now seemed to pulse with a life of its own. "There are others who've been trapped like I was. The Wendigo is just one of many. They're not all so easily confronted." Nora's eyes widened. "What do we do?" I took a breath, feeling the weight of my brother's words. "We need to find them, help them. But first, we need to heal." As I rose to my feet, I felt a strange pull in the distance, a new mystery tugging at my consciousness. The forest, though quiet now, still held secrets, and I knew our journey was far from over. Marcus's form flickered once more, a painful reminder that while we had won this battle, the war was just beginning. "Remember, Eldrick, the darkness never truly fades. It waits for a moment of weakness." I nodded, determination igniting within me. "Then we'll be ready." Together, we stepped into the depths of the forest, the shadows whispering promises of challenges yet to come, each rustle of leaves a reminder that our fight against the darkness had only just begun. As Marcus and I ventured deeper into the forest, the shadows whispered secrets I couldn't quite grasp. Every rustle of leaves felt like the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to unfold. I could sense the weight of the unknown pressing against my chest, a reminder that we had only scratched the surface of the darkness that awaited us. "Eldrick," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we need to be prepared. There's no telling what we might encounter next." His figure shimmered with an ethereal glow, a reminder of the fragility of his existence. I nodded, but uncertainty gnawed at me. The Wendigo was just the beginning, and even though we had defeated it, I couldn't shake the feeling that something more sinister lurked just beyond our reach. What if we can't save them all?" I asked, the weight of my words hanging heavily in the air. Marcus looked at me, his eyes filled with both hope and sorrow. "We'll do our best, but we can't save everyone. Some may be too far gone." A chill ran down my spine. The implications were clear. We could end up facing our own darkness, our own regrets, and the possibility of failing those who needed us most. As we pressed on, each step felt like a countdown to an inevitable confrontation, one that may not end in triumph. Suddenly the ground shook, and a low growl echoed through the trees, reverberating in my bones. I turned to Marcus, and for a moment I saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. "Eldrick, But then the shadows closed in, and I felt the cold embrace of the unknown wrap around me. Were we walking into a trap, or was it something worse, a cycle bound to repeat itself? In that moment, everything blurred. I couldn't tell if we were moving forward or if we were merely retracing our steps into the heart of darkness. And as the whispers grew louder, I realized that the fight against the shadows was far from over. For now, we were alive. But how long would that last? The forest loomed large around us, filled with mysteries still unsolved. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more tales that tread the line between light and shadow. Share with your friends so they too can embark on this mystery-filled adventure, and leave a comment below telling us your favorite part or what kind of ending you'd like to see in a future story.